Imagine someone scrutinizing your every move, watching for tiny cracks, testing whether you crumble or stand firm under pressure. That's exactly what happens when a woman craves an older, more experienced man. She doesn't ask outright, she sets invisible trials to measure the strength of your mind and the weight of your presence. And here's the truth, there are only two questions that really matter. Two questions designed to expose whether a man's power is superficial or deeply rooted in certainty. Fail them, and you're just another temporary distraction. Pass them, and you become someone she can't stop thinking about. If you want to master these two invisible tests and respond like a man who commands respect without proving it, hit that like button and subscribe, because understanding these two questions can change the way attraction unfolds entirely. When a woman unconsciously tests an older man, the first and most important test revolves around responsibility under pressure, and it's never spoken aloud. She doesn't ask you outright if you're reliable. Instead, she creates situations, small or large, where your reaction communicates everything about your capacity to handle life's demands. It could be a sudden problem that arises during a conversation, a minor crisis that requires a decision, or even a casual scenario where she observes whether you remain steady when things deviate from the expected path. What she's looking for isn't perfection. She's looking for composure, decisiveness, and the ability to carry responsibility without hesitation or panic. Older men who have lived through challenges know that responsibility isn't a burden to be avoided, but a test of character, and they approach it with calm authority rather than stress. In these moments, timing and tone are crucial. Rushing recklessly, over explaining, or seeking approval signals insecurity, whereas a measured, intentional response communicates that you are grounded and capable. The way you handle this first test often becomes the anchor for all future evaluations. It tells her whether your attraction is based on a fleeting surface level appeal or a deeper sense of stability she instinctively craves. Subtle details matter. How you manage frustration, how you balance empathy with firmness, and how quickly you decide when there's no perfect solution. Every action, from a simple word choice to body language, becomes evidence of your reliability. And passing this test creates a subconscious magnetism because it signals that you can be trusted, that you can be leaned on, and that chaos won't destabilize your presence. Failing it, on the other hand, triggers doubt and reduces interest almost immediately because instability undermines attraction more than anything else. The brilliance of this test is that it doesn't require grand gestures or flashy displays. It rewards internal mastery and restraint. In essence, this first invisible question is asking, can you carry responsibility without losing yourself, without seeking validation, without being rattled? And the men who instinctively pass it are the ones who command respect effortlessly, drawing admiration not by force but by quiet demonstration of capability and calm, an older man's unique signature of power. The second question a woman unconsciously tests in an older man revolves around decisiveness in ambiguity, and like the first, it is never spoken but deeply observed. She sets situations where the path forward is unclear, where the stakes are uncertain, or where tension exists, and she watches closely to see how he navigates the unknown. This is not about making the perfect choice. It's about demonstrating mental clarity, confidence, and the ability to act without hesitation or self-doubt. Older men who have faced life's unpredictability instinctively understand that indecision signals weakness and that hesitation invites chaos, confusion, or loss of authority. In this test, timing, tone, and subtle body language carry more weight than words. A man who pauses intentionally, evaluates quickly, and chooses a path without over explaining or seeking reassurance communicates a profound sense of internal control. Conversely, wavering, second guessing, or over analyzing under pressure reveals insecurity and undermines attraction because it shows that his stability is conditional rather than intrinsic. What she is assessing is whether he can be trusted to lead, to anchor situations, and to respond effectively when life does not follow a script. It's in moments like negotiating a plan, responding to unexpected conflict, or making choices with social or emotional consequences that this test surfaces, and passing it doesn't require dominating the situation. It requires mastery of self, of focus, and of timing. A man who succeeds here demonstrates decisiveness without arrogance, clarity without rigidity, and confidence without needing to prove it, creating an almost magnetic pull because it signals reliability in uncertainty, a rare trait that resonates deeply on a subconscious level. Failing this test, even subtly, triggers doubt and reduces subconscious attraction because it reveals that emotional and mental stability are conditional, dependent on comfort and certainty rather than ingrained resilience. Essentially, this second invisible question is asking, can you act with calm, intelligent decisiveness when the right path isn't clear? When stakes are ambiguous and when others rely on your presence for guidance? Passing it marks a man as someone who commands respect effortlessly, not through showmanship, but through quiet mastery over his own mind and reactions, a hallmark of the mature, experienced man she is drawn to. The third subtle test a woman places before an older man is not about what he says or the choices he makes in obvious situations, but about emotional composure under provocation. And like the first two, it is entirely nonverbal and instinctual. She may introduce scenarios designed to elicit irritation, frustration, or even jealousy, not out of malice but to see whether he allows fleeting emotions to dictate behavior or whether he maintains control over his responses. In these moments, his reaction or lack thereof becomes a powerful signal of inner strength and maturity. An older man who has cultivated emotional mastery understands that giving in to impulsive anger, sarcasm, or defensive behavior communicates weakness, while a calm, measured response conveys stability, confidence, and self-possession. This test often comes through micro interactions, a pointed comment, a challenge to his opinion, or a situation where she subtly violates expectations to gauge his tolerance for unpredictability. What she is really evaluating is whether he can maintain dignity and authority even when provoked, whether he can hold his center without seeking to control the outcome or manipulate her perception. Every micro expression, every pause, every tone of voice contributes to the assessment, and passing it creates a subconscious attraction because it demonstrates that he is unshakable, reliable, and secure in his own identity. Men who fail this test often react instinctively, revealing insecurity, neediness, or volatility, which instantly diminishes perceived value. Success, however, lies in subtlety. He doesn't need to lecture, dominate, or win the interaction. He simply demonstrates the ability to maintain presence, control, and calm in a way that feels magnetic. This test is the bridge between competence and charisma because emotional composure signals both intelligence and maturity, traits that the subconscious mind finds irresistibly attractive. In essence, this third unspoken question asks, can you remain grounded when provoked? When your ego is tested? When chaos brushes against your poise? The answer determines whether the attraction deepens or wanes, because the men who pass it exude a rare combination of authority and serenity that cannot be faked, a signature of the older man who is both desired and respected. The fourth test she unconsciously applies revolves around patience and the ability to delay gratification. And like the earlier tests, it is rarely verbal and often hidden in seemingly mundane situations. She observes how he responds when things don't happen immediately, when plans shift, or when progress toward a goal is slower than expected, and she measures whether he becomes restless, frustrated, or impulsive, or whether he maintains composure and continues moving with purpose. Older men who have lived through experience know that life rarely offers instant rewards, and they understand that impatience signals weakness and a lack of foresight, while patience conveys wisdom, control, and strategic thinking. In this test, timing is critical. She notices whether he pressures outcomes, tries to force situations prematurely, or whether he can wait, observe, and act only when the moment is right. Every small reaction, from body language to tone of voice to subtle facial expressions, communicates his capacity to tolerate uncertainty without losing focus or composure. Success in this test is rarely flashy. It is quiet, understated, and internal, but it is immediately noticeable on a subconscious level because it signals a man who is grounded, confident, and capable of long-term vision rather than being driven by short-term impulses. Those who fail this test reveal a lack of emotional maturity and struggle to project stability under delayed outcomes, which diminishes perceived value and attraction instantly. She is essentially asking whether he can operate with self-control, whether he can prioritize long-term goals over immediate satisfaction, and whether he can remain present and deliberate even when circumstances challenge his patience. Passing this test not only strengthens attraction, but also reinforces the perception that he is reliable, strategic, and emotionally intelligent, qualities that are magnetically appealing because they communicate mastery over self and over life's unpredictable rhythms. The men who embody patience effortlessly signal a rare combination of calm power and disciplined desire, a hallmark of maturity that distinguishes the older, experienced man from those who are reactive and short-sighted, making him both respected and deeply compelling without uttering a single boast. The fifth test she unconsciously applies revolves around consistency, and it is one of the most subtle, yet revealing evaluations a man can face, because it measures whether his words, actions, and energy align over time. She doesn't test this in a single conversation or through a single gesture. She observes patterns, timing, and reliability across multiple interactions to see if he maintains the same level of composure, confidence, and presence, or if he fluctuates depending on circumstances or her perceived attention. Older men who have mastered themselves know that inconsistency undermines trust and attraction, and they understand that what appears as flaws in young or reactive men, hot and cold behavior, overcompensation, or erratic decision-making, creates instability that repels rather than draws interest. In this test, the smallest deviations matter: how he handles repeated challenges, whether his principles shift when convenient, and whether his demeanor wavers when outcomes aren't favorable. Consistency isn't about rigidity, it's about reliability and predictability of character, the kind that communicates quiet strength and dependability. Failing this test, even subtly, signals emotional immaturity, impulsiveness, or superficial confidence, immediately reducing attraction because it undermines the subconscious sense of security she seeks. Passing it, however, creates a magnetic pull because she recognizes that this is a man who can be counted on, who responds with the same calm authority regardless of pressure or context, and who maintains the integrity of his presence even when challenges arise repeatedly. This invisible question is essentially asking, can you be steady over time, regardless of external distractions, chaos, or provocation? Can your actions and energy remain aligned, signaling that your strength is not a temporary display but a consistent way of being? Men who pass this test effortlessly radiate trustworthiness, mastery over self, and a magnetic authority because they demonstrate that their composure and confidence are not situational or performative. They are internal, ingrained, and dependable. This consistency becomes a psychological anchor, drawing attention, admiration, and attraction naturally, creating the sense that this man is not only capable of handling life, but of being a solid, unshakable presence that others can rely on without doubt or hesitation. The sixth test she unconsciously applies is about emotional intelligence and awareness, and it's entirely silent yet deeply revealing because it measures whether a man can read subtle cues, understand unspoken needs, and respond appropriately without overreacting or misjudging the situation. She doesn't directly ask for validation or explanations. Instead, she observes how he perceives tension, mood shifts, or underlying emotions, and whether he adapts with sensitivity and intelligence. Older men who have mastered themselves naturally pick up on micro signals, the slightest change in tone, body language, or expression, and they respond with calm, thoughtful presence rather than impulsive reactions or overcompensation. In this test, timing and subtlety are everything. Noticing a need without being asked, offering reassurance without performing, and demonstrating empathy without losing authority communicates a rare combination of insight and composure. Those who fail misread signals, overreact, or impose their own assumptions, which instantly breaks the sense of safety and attraction because it shows a lack of awareness and emotional maturity. Passing this test, however, triggers a subconscious sense of trust and magnetism because it signals that he understands more than what is spoken, that he can navigate complex social and emotional dynamics without forcing outcomes or seeking approval. Essentially, this test is asking, can you recognize emotions, interpret context, and act with appropriate intelligence while maintaining calm authority? Can you engage without ego, respond without defensiveness, and influence without manipulation? Men who pass naturally convey that their confidence is informed by perception, not arrogance, and their presence becomes magnetic because they provide a sense of understanding and security that is rare and instinctively attractive. Emotional intelligence in this context isn't about solving problems or offering advice. It's about perception, timing, and subtle alignment with the unspoken needs of a dynamic interaction. The older, experienced man who passes this test becomes someone who is not only respected but deeply compelling because he demonstrates that attraction isn't built on performance, power plays, or superficial charm. It is rooted in awareness, presence, and the quiet mastery of human behavior that only comes with experience and self-mastery. The seventh test she unconsciously applies centers on a man's ability to maintain boundaries and protect his energy, and it is one of the most psychologically powerful evaluations because it reveals whether he is easily swayed or firmly grounded in his principles. She doesn't test this by direct confrontation or debate. Instead, she observes how he responds when pressure arises, when requests, expectations, or emotional manipulations are placed on him, and whether he bends to accommodate or holds steady without apology. Older men who have mastered themselves understand that attraction is amplified, not diminished, by the ability to enforce limits calmly and intentionally, because it communicates self respect, autonomy, and reliability. In this test, the smallest signals matter. Whether he says no without guilt, maintains composure when others push boundaries, and refuses to overextend himself to